So our next theme leader, Professor Brigid McNeill, to now present on the successful literacy and learning theme. Kia ora, Brigid.
Kia ora anō. I've been given a promotion twice today, once on my badge and once for my introduction, of which I'm very grateful. So it's my pleasure to talk about our current planning for the successful literacy and learning theme for the next 5 years. But before we get into our current thinking about potential projects, I think it's important for me to highlight the general principles that are really driving what we're looking to do in the next 5 years. We have the aspirational, if you like, KPI in our minds of increasing the percentage of children who are achieving well in their literacy education. And within all the projects that we envision within our theme, we are committed to ensuring that vision mātauranga is embedded right throughout our projects, and that our projects are embedded in community, because we see that as having the biggest chance of creating change for our children. We also follow really strongly the braided rivers approach to integrating both Western science knowledge and Indigenous knowledge in thinking about improving outcomes for our tamariki in literacy. The model that you have there is, in terms of the braided rivers, has been extended to show how we think about literacy success within our theme, or learning success. Basically, the component model of reading talks about 3 main streams, if you like, that are necessary for children to have literacy success. One stream is cognitive, which you heard a little bit about this morning, in terms of the phonological awareness and vocabulary knowledge that children need to be good early readers. But of course we know that those skills do not develop in a vacuum. And so there are also really important ecological influences on children's early literacy and language development. Whānau, home literacy practices all have a really important part to play in ensuring the success of our children in this area, and also psychological in terms of factors such as children's self-efficacy, children's cultural identity, and motivation. All of those factors also play a really big role in what sounds simple in terms of being a successful reader. So when we think about that KPI of improving the proportion of children who are achieving in literacy, then it would be remiss of us to focus on one of those streams in isolation. And so the projects that we're thinking of going forward, and I'm probably pitching more projects that we'll get money for, but who knows, I might get more money than you guys in our thing. But we're at that stage. Okay, so I'm going to go through the current projects that we're thinking of as they relate to each of those themes within the component model. As you heard this morning, we've done a number of community engagement pilot projects, some in the early childhood context and some in the primary school context. We want to extend those projects. Project 1 there is thinking more about intergenerational shared book reading, so thinking about how can we get whānau more engaged in reading with children, and thinking about it from the perspective of not only the important effects that it can have on children's developing skills, but also the positive impact that it might have on kaumātua, for example, who would be involved in that project. We see real benefits for that type of approach for not only building those foundational skills that we know are important for success in early schooling, but also really important for building positive relationships between children and their whānau. We also want to extend the work that's been done on the use of digital devices to promote learning in emergent bilingual children. We know that the community is cautious about this area, that whānau are seeking a lot of support about how to use technology in a way that's advantageous, and we need to be able to provide whānau with the direction about how technology can be used in a purposeful way to improve outcomes for our young children. We see potential cross-theme linkages when we're working at this ecological level. You heard Rachel this morning talk about sleep. Obviously, there's a relationship between technology, screen time use and sleep, so we're interested in exploring that. And we also see really important linkages between this type of focus and building the resilience and mental well-being of our young children and their whānau as well. In terms of the cognitive stream, I guess a big part of what we'll be doing in that area will be extending the literacy intervention pilot that I talked about this morning. We're interested in looking at different models of including communities within and teachers within that intervention, because we want to explore whether we can provide a more efficient model, basically, of supporting teachers and community in this realm so it can be upscaled. So we have the input of an education economist helping with that. We also want to extend, based on some of the work that Melissa presented this morning, about extending the work into immersion and bilingual te reo settings as well, to be thinking about how can we be enhancing literacy success in te reo Māori and also in English. Okay. And another project will build off some of the work that, potential projects will build off some of the work that Philip presented this morning, based around the before school check. So we're interested in exploring potential earlier points of contact with the health system, so potentially linking between oral health and engagement and linking DHB information and the other information you've heard about in the IDI. But I'm really cognizant at this point of the really important comments that were put forward this morning. And I think when we're dealing with the IDI and the limitations in the IDI, we've got some projects that will sit alongside the big data projects to provide a little bit more of the how, or the why, or the what could be changed. So we are planning a project that looks at whānau perception of the before school check, and we're hoping to have information about how to improve not only the uptake of whānau in the before school check, either by looking at different measures to add on, but also how do we ensure that if a difficulty is picked up in the before school check, how can we support whānau to go on to get support to help their children, because we also have a number of whānau where a difficulty is recognised, but they're not carrying on to the next appointment. So thinking about extending the before school check focus in that way. We also have an interest in supporting the literacy and language development of children with developmental disabilities, thinking about a project based in Christchurch within a very successful early intervention centre, the Champion Centre, which looks at a whānau-focused role for supporting early language and school readiness in children with multiple disabilities. So we feel like that's a really important place for us to focus as well. If we're thinking about lifting literacy success for all children, then we also need to be thinking about children with developmental disability as well. And finally, in terms of the psychological, we are planning on having a leadership community project, which will be Pacifica-led, looking at a community approach in terms of integrating health and education leaders, supporting change amongst practitioners. And in terms of, as well as literacy success across languages within that project, we're also particularly interested in the impact and the need to support children's cultural identity, self-esteem and sense of belonging. And I think some of the other comments this morning around how do we measure that in particular groups, we don't have the answer yet, but I think that's going to be a really important focus for those projects. And any of our projects, when we're working within that psychological stream, we need to be thinking about the appropriateness of our measures. And that's me, and I'll say on purpose, but I think it was on purpose, I've got an extra 6 minutes for some comments and questions, but they would be extremely valued at this stage. We're still in the planning stages, and so with that in mind, I would love to hear feedback, comments, questions, if there's any.